What's up, everybody? Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Shape the Podcast. My name is Kyle Waller. You know me. I do this every other Friday night here on the Shape the Podcast, you know, part of the Talking Bridge Network. Again, big thanks to Aaron and Sean for letting me be a part of it. So, man, I hope you've all had a great couple of weeks. It's been, like I said, 2 weeks since the last episode. I hope you enjoyed the last episode. Uh, Big thank you to Will Daughtry for coming on and sharing his story. Um, Man, it was a great story. If you did not watch his story or were unable to watch the story, you can go back to the Shape the Podcast page, also the Shape the Podcast YouTube page, and you can catch up on not only his story, but all the rest of the stories out there. Before I start with my guest tonight, I just want to talk about one awesome thing that Shape the Podcast is involved in, and it is this right here. A lot of you know I'm part of the bearding community, which I love. It is one of my passions in my life. But I approached the guys at Lucky Boy Beard Company about doing a collaboration beard oil to benefit not only your beard, but also mental health. And so we came up with this awesome beard oil called Hold Fast. Um, it is amazing. It smells great. It just like for me when I put it in my beard, it just calms me and relaxes me. Um, so go over to Lucky Boy Beard Co. Get you a bottle of Hold Fast. The beautiful thing about this is that if you buy a bottle of Hold Fast, right, it's $19 for 1 ounce, but $5 from every single bottle will be donated to a mental health based charity. All right. And we have that mental health based charity picked out. They'll actually be coming on the podcast here in a couple weeks to introduce themselves. But yeah, so go there, get you a bottle of Hold Fast. Um, like I said, $5 from every single bottle will be donated to a mental health based charity. And plus, you can use Shape 20 at checkout and get 20% off. So, not only are you helping out mental health, but you're also helping out your pocketbook, your wallets, And everybody knows Christmas time's coming up. You want to save a little bit of money, do that. And they'll be coming out with a balm as well. So same scent. Again, when you buy the balm, $5 will be going to charity as well. So thank you to Doc and the original Jay from Lucky Boy for being eager and willing to create such an awesome scent. So enough ramblings. How about I bring on my guest tonight? I met this gentleman a couple times in the bearding community. Got to have some fun with him at a certain event called Monsters Ball, and we'll bring that up as soon as I bring him on. But tonight my guest is none other than Kyle Miles Killinger, right? And he'll go over why his nickname is Miles, why he goes by Miles. We'll talk about all that. All right, so let's welcome to the podcast, Mr. Killinger. What is going on, sir?
How's it going, Kyle?
It is going well. I'm the first Kyle. You're the second Kyle. Right? Let's don't get that started, okay?
Hey, age before beauty, right? Age before beauty.
But we both have gray, so it's okay.
Yeah,
So,
yes, we do.
Yeah, I thank you for being eager to come on the podcast when I asked you. I thought that was awesome that you automatically said when, where, at what time I'm there. So
No, yeah,
I as you heard me, I alluded to the time that we went to a certain competition called Monsters Ball, and
Yep.
there in Pennsylvania, and we both were dressed in our workout gear, and lo and behold, what did we do? We went out into the streets of Pennsylvania, and we're trying to get people to work out with us.
yeah.
It 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 was a sight to behold. My wife unfortunately uh, cannot find a video of it, or else I would have popped it up here tonight.
Yeah.
But well, like I said, when she heard you were going to be on, she goes, "Hold on, that's the guy from Indiana, right?" And I'm like, yeah, that's him. So
That's me.
it's
I'm that crazy guy.
by the way, somebody says Renegade Joe Compton.
Yep, Joe Compton is good dude,
Uh,
fellow
and
veteran.
he's watching from Twitch.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, tonight I have people watching from Twitch. Of course, I'll have YouTube, Facebook, and my brother's keeper. So let's just start about that, man. Let's just talk about a little bit about your journey, and then we'll talk about the whole 22 to none, veterans, and why you do the mission that you do. So
Yeah.
Go ahead and start. Introduce yourself.
So, Kyle, Miles, I'll answer to either one, honestly. So I just turned 37. Wednesday, my birthday. I officially hit old man status, and
No, you haven't.
not yet. Was that 38?
So yeah.
Is that 38? No.
Once you hit 40, I believe you're old man status.
Okay, close enough. Born and raised in Indiana, and I went the majority of my life. I never did anything with my life, and then joined the military. Derailed my life miserably, quickly, and after I got out of the military, I continued that destructive journey for a long time, and then in 2015,
I was going to say, how long were you in?
A little over 2 years, but when I got out, I shut it all out. I didn't want to be a part of it anymore.
Yeah,
I had a lot of mental issues that were not specifically military related. That
gotcha.
that kind of bloomed before, during, and after. So it's just a culmination of a lot of things clashing with each other that led down that destructive path for what seemed like the majority of my life at the time. Let's see. I went down the destructive path of alcohol and drugs, like a lot of people do. I'm not special in that aspect, but 2015, I was sitting in a bar in my hometown where I live, and there was a guy, and when I walked in, my friend sitting at the bar said, "Hey, you have to meet this guy. He's walking across the country." I'm like, why in the hell would anybody do that? That's stupid.
Yeah.
I said those words. I said, that's stupid. Why would anybody do that? And they were like, no, you have to talk to this guy. Wait till he comes in here. He's on the phone outside. He comes in, and there's like 4 people in this bar. He sits down right next to me, and I'm like, in my head, I was like, why would you sit right next to me when there's 20 other seats open? Yeah. And he looks at me, and he says, "Are you a Marine?" "Yeah, I am. Are you?" He goes, "Yeah, I am." He shook his hand out. He's like, my name's Ryan. Nice to meet you. It's like, right on. I was like, my name's Kyle. We had some reminiscing about the good old days, in the military, in the Marine Corps.
If you call
and yeah. And he was telling me I was like, it makes sense why you're walking across the country. I said, only Marines stupid enough to do something like that.
Yeah.
And
eat crowns.
Yeah, exactly. And I immediately after that, he told me why, and I was like, oh, insert foot into mouth now,
Yeah.
And he said, do you know that there are 22 veterans that are committing suicide every single day? And I'm like, what? There's no way. That's it. That number 22 every single day. He's like, yeah. And he told me the story of how the statistic was calculated by the VA. It is extremely higher than 22.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's way higher than 22 now.
It's closer to like 40, 45 now that we know of.
Yep.
And they don't count a lot of things, so it is extremely higher. But he's telling about how there are 22 a day that commit suicide, and all the things that all these people, all these different veterans go through that lead them to what they think is the best decision to end their life. And as we know now, it's not. But being in that moment and being a personal survivor of that itself immediately was like, it grabbed me. I'm like, I want to know more about this. Tell me more. I need to know more about this.
Yeah.
And he told me his personal story that he was going to become one of those 22. He was going to become that statistic. He said, not necessarily to try to bring up religion, but his story was he talked to God, and he said, if you give me a reason to stay, I'll stay. But if you don't, I'll give you one more day. If you don't give me a reason, then I'm doing it. I can't live like this.
Yeah.
And his nephew actually walked into his room right after he said that. They had a conversation. I don't know what that was. That was between him and his nephew, you know, and whatever they talked about or whatever his nephew said to him, he was like, that's all I needed. And he's like, I want to do something that can help people and change their perspective and change their life and inspire them that they're here for a reason. That is not the answer, you know.
Yeah.
So he sold all of his possessions pretty much, and he's bought a cart and he filled it up with supplies, and he started walking from Dover, Delaware, west. He was going west.
Wow.
And he happened to be in the bar that I was in on that specific day when I was there. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I frequented that bar a lot, but he just happened to be there at that time that I was there. And that day was literally the pivotal point in changing the trajectory of my life.
You were meant to be there at that specific time.
At that specific time, I was like,
I'm not a religious person either, but I believe that our higher power puts us where we need to be at certain times in our lives. You know,
absolutely.
And or he does things that will change it, like you said, change the trajectory of our lives, and put us in the right direction. So yeah, you were right where you needed to be. You know, even though you were, you know, you wanted to go there and get drunk and and you know, wallow in your self pity and the woes is me's. You know,
exactly.
Now you go there and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, man.
And it's funny looking back now. Like, if you'd asked me then, how do you think your life's going to be in 10 years from now? The same, you know, slightly better maybe. No, it's
mine
total 180.
Mine wouldn't have been. I can tell you right now, my life now from 10 years ago, jeez, man, I'm not the same Kyle.
Yeah, same. I'm not the same Kyle either.
I'm not the same Kyle.
Yeah. So he told me his story, and it really resonated, and it gripped me, and I was like, I want to do something like this.
Yeah.
So we exchanged numbers. He's like, I'm staying in town for like 1 more day or 2 more days. When I leave town, I'll let you know. We'll meet up again. And he was heading out of town, and I saw him on US 31. And I was like, that's the same guy. I did a U-turn, turned around, and I stopped, pulled my car over, and I ran up to him like, hey, I was like, give me a hug. I need a hug. Hugged the guy, and we talked some more. And he was like, look, if you need to talk about anything at any point, you have my phone number. You can call me whenever you need to talk about whatever. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to bother this guy. This guy's on a huge monumental journey. He's not going to want to listen to, you know, my problems, whatever. We talked multiple times. Multiple times. I followed his journey a lot along social media and stuff, you know, calls and texts. And I don't remember where he was, but I was like, this was months after that. He was still walking. He did I'm not going to quote the miles, because I'll probably get him. I think he did 5,000 miles in 555 days, something like that. Don't quote me on that, but it wasn't a direct route from east to west. It was all over. Mm-hmm. But that following spring, I talked to him. I was like, hey, I want to do something like what you're doing, but I don't have the balls to sell my possessions and just walk across the country. Yeah. Like, I want to. That takes more balls than what I got. And I'm pretty brave, and I'm pretty crazy to do something like that, you know.
Yeah.
Especially if you look at me now.
We've let go of our possessions for a whole lot more worse, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So he was like, well, you don't have to do something this big. You can do something smaller, you know, it'll have just as much importance and impact and help just as many people. And I was like, well, I have a whole week off of work in a few weeks. I was like, I could do something then.
Yeah.
I said, I have like 9 days off total. He was like, we'll do something then. He's like, what do you like to do? I was like, I love to run. He was like, how far can you run in 9 days? And I was like, I don't know, 300 miles. He was like, you laughed at me and called me stupid because I wanted to walk across the country. I said, before I knew what you were doing it for, I did.
Yep.
But he said, but you think that you can run 300 miles in 5 days and you think that's not crazy. I said, no, I know it's crazy. I think I can do it.
Yeah.
And so this was 6 weeks before I did the first 300 miles. And so I figured out a start point, an end point, a route. I raised a little bit of money to pay for supplies and stuff. And I found some drivers to help me, drive the supplies and, be a safety vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 6 weeks to train to run 300 miles. I don't care who you are. That is not enough time to train for 300 miles.
Don't do it, kids.
No, don't try this at home, kids. I promise. Take it from somebody who's done it. And I don't regret doing it, but I regret not having enough time to train.
Yeah.
So the first year in 2016, I ran from Pentwater, Michigan. Go Blue, by the way.
No.
No, I'm just kidding, man. Pentwater, Michigan, all the way back to Columbus, Indiana, my hometown, in 9 days. And it was, to this day, one of the wildest experiences I've ever had, because I met people that found a video on Facebook. I just made a random video and I put it out into the ether. Mad Viking got a hold of it, and a bunch of other organizations and people got a hold of it, and they just shared it, and it exploded. And I had a guy, I don't know if you know Dave Winkler or not. He lives up in Michigan. He drove down like 2.5 hours at like 5 a.m. the first day I started, that in 2016, to run the first few miles with me. Never met him before in my life. He just seen my video and he was like, "Hey, I want to run with you for the first couple miles."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Wow, this is already crazy." That I know people are hearing this. And one thing that I've done, and I'm like, I feel like I'm the most proud of, and if I can be proud, is I've never done, and I never will do any of this for self gratitude or like for any selfish reasons. It's to help other people and to let them know that I've been where they're at or where they've been.
Yeah.
And you can turn your life around. It's okay to not be okay, but just don't stay there.
Yeah.
So, the first year I did it in 9 days, and it was miserable because I didn't train. I did not have good shoes. I wasn't stretching. I wasn't eating great. I was hydrated. That's the only good thing I did. I had the worst shin splints of my life, but I did it. In 9 days, I got back to Columbus, Indiana, and there was a really good sized group of people that met me. The mayor shut down half the 31 all the way into town, and it was wild to see that people were hearing what the message was about.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what I wanted. I wanted to help people. I want to let people know this is what's going on. We have to do something about this. This issue is something has to be done,
Yeah.
And then
most definitely, and something still needs to be done. It's that's
crazy. The best part too, because if I look at what how everybody looked at veteran suicide 10 years ago versus now, it is astronomically better.
Yep.
It is still needs a lot of work, but we're going the right direction.
Yeah.
With it, I've met and tried my best to help, and I've received help from multiple organizations that do this kind of thing, to do whatever they can to help veterans and anybody, honestly, even just civilians struggling with mental health issues.
Yeah.
And it's been the most rewarding thing I could ever ask for in my life. Like it's been crazy. So in 2016, I was like, okay, I have the same week off work. I want to do it again, So I ran from the Pro Football Hall of Fame there in Canton, Ohio, all the way back to my hometown again. It was about the same amount of distance. I did it in 8 days, one less day, but that's the time I had off work. I had to do it in that amount of time.
Yeah.
I didn't really have the vacation to do it longer.
So how many miles were you doing a day then?
I don't remember. I can do some quick math because I know roughly how far it was. I was doing like 38 or 40, somewhere around there. That second year.
So there is. I'm gonna read this real quick just because it came from somebody from Twitch.
Legend.
Men's suicide rate is 4 times higher than women's. I'll figure it out. It needs to be replaced with being okay to talk to people. Yeah,
100%.
100%. I mean, that's one thing. That's one thing I do this podcast for, is because I want, men and women to be able to come on and talk about it. I mean,
Absolutely.
it is okay to not be okay some days.
Absolutely.
Life sucks sometimes, and we've seen how bad life has sucked this year.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get political, but we've seen a lot of hate, on both sides of the fence.
100%.
And a lot of people have lost a lot of people because of it. So yeah. You're right, Legend. It is okay, for people to talk about it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So the second year, I did a lot more training. I went to an actual like running shoe store, and talked to them, and they set me up with some actual running shoes. And I trained, and I did a lot things a lot better, and it was a lot easier on my body because I knew what I was getting into. I knew how to tackle it, and it was still extremely difficult. I will never say it was easy, because it wasn't. I did it 4 times.
No,
I've done it 5 times technically, but
it never really gets easier. You know what I'm saying?
No, but like anything, if you prepare, it's not as hard as it could have been, or it's not as hard as it was the first year. So the third year, I ran from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I started on the steps there at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, and I ran all the way back to Columbus, Indiana. And again, I had an even bigger crowd there at the end that was like welcoming me back and everything like that. And that year we had a 5K. So I had to run 300 miles and then do a 5K at the end with everybody else. It was the slowest 5K I've ever done in my life, I think.
I bet.
But,
you're like, I'm just going
and
to
that
walk
was
this 5K.
That's the thing. Like, more people wanted to get involved. So I was like, hey, let's just do a 5K at the end. We can all finish together, And so, again, I met more people that second year that was just like willing to do whatever they could to help with how, like, anything. If I needed like supplies, or if I needed like a driver, or hey, I heard about this veteran that's struggling in Kansas. Do I know anybody in Kansas? Share it out. They got him his electric bill paid or whatever, so he wouldn't lose his electric and freeze in the middle of winter, whatever it was. And again, that was like it's from the first year to the second year, I'm like, this has grown way more than I ever thought it would. And it wasn't because I'm doing it for anything, any self-gratitude or anything. I'm like, I want to help people as much as I can, however I can. Men, women, veteran or not. To this day, now I want to help everybody. Like, it wasn't like I was ever trying to not help civilians. But it was like my focus, because the statistic is 22 veterans commit suicide every day.
Yeah.
Now, you can dig into that statistic all you want. It makes you sick. It should.
Well, and so, I mean, that's just veterans. Let's just take it a broader spectrum. Let's just take it about just people in general. Like the rate of suicides for people who are out there, who are afraid to talk about it, afraid to reach out. It's crazy. How high the rate of suicides are. I'm a suicide survivor. 3 times. But thank God, now I don't have to worry about that shit. I don't.
You've never been more glad for a failure in your life, have you?
Never.
That you failed those attempts.
Well, and those failures in my life made me a better person.
100%.
But yeah, I mean, it's just, you think about that. It's 22, now 44 plus veterans a day commit suicide. But you put that on top of, Lord have mercy, I would say hundreds. You know what I'm saying? Of men and women a day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, it's very disturbing.
The thing is, that's one thing that we as a country kind of forget about. Is mental health.
It's not just our country. That's even sadder, because it's not just us. It's the entire planet. The whole world.
It's and it also doesn't help that what we're being fed, and not just in our the food we eat, but also what we see on TV.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
it's what you're being fed. Sometimes will get to you, and
Yeah.
it'll take you to dark places that you don't want to go. By the way,
Hmm.
it's nice to see Travis Smith on. Sir, how are you doing?
I want to be
That
as
is
healthy
one
as that
guy.
guy.
That is one guy right there that whose drive and determination I admire the
100%.
most. You know, but yeah, there he goes.
Make America healthy
Make
again. That's
America
right.
healthy again. And then I like what Jeff Harris said. It's we're we're falling when it comes to taking care of veterans.
Yeah.
But I mean, what you're doing and what you did. Let's get back to that. So you did that small. When did you do the big gigantic run?
So I did the 300 miles 4 times. I did it from Michigan, Ohio, Alabama, and Missouri.
Yeah.
And then 2016 through 2019. I wanted to do something in 2020, but I couldn't. Obviously, the world shut down. I couldn't get sponsored. I couldn't, I was unemployed. So
Yeah.
So I literally gained 50 pounds during COVID because I was unemployed. Luckily, I got a job later on in the year, but I sat at home, played video games, ate like junk food all the entire time, gained 50 some pounds.
Yeah.
2021 rolls around. I was like, if I have another year where I don't do anything, I'm not only gonna be disappointed in myself, but like I also feel like I'm letting other people down. It's not that I have a responsibility to help.
Yeah.
But I have a responsibility to help because I have the ability to help. I have a talent that I know that I can use to help people. I've seen it happen,
Yeah.
And if I just sit here and waste that, then that is exactly what it is. It is a waste. So I was rolling out some ideas in my head. I was like, I don't think work's going to let me off enough time to run across the United States. So I'm like, it doesn't. If you don't ask, you'll never know.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not shy. So I talked to the general manager where I work, and I was like, hey, you know what I do? The 300 miles, I'm helping veterans, raising awareness for veteran suicide. What do you think this company's opinion would be on letting me off for like 4 months? He was like, 4 months? I was like, yeah. I was like, I want to run across the United States.
Yeah.
Coast to coast. And he was like, that's a tall order, but he's like, write it up, know exactly what you want to do, dates, time, amount of time off work, and everything. Yeah. I will go with you. We'll present this to the president and see what happens. Yeah, this is not a decision I can make.
No, yeah,
that's above his head. So I was like, okay. I had some help. I had it written up pretty professional. I wanted this date to this date off for this exact reason. I put in there why, the statistics, and everything else.
Yeah.
And they presented it to the president, who doesn't speak English, had to go through a translator. And because I work for a Japanese company, big shout out to Right Way Fasteners. They came through 2 days later. They said, not only are we going to give you the time off that you want, because all I asked for, I said, all I want is to come back to a job. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah.
And they were like, not only are we going to let you off, but we're going to pay your health insurance while you're gone. I didn't even think about health insurance.
Yeah,
I'm a dude. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't need health insurance.
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be fine. Just put some duct tape and dirt on.
I won't get hurt while I'm out there. I'm great. I'm great.
And not only that, they gave me a very big donation too to help with supplies.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, this is real. I have to do this now.
Yeah.
Because I was like, they're gonna say no. No one's gonna let me off for 4 months. They did, and they came through with all of that. And
well, see, the thing is, you were doubting it, and I bet you weren't even going to ask it, because that's the thing. If you don't ask, doing something like that powerful, most places would be like, yeah,
yeah.
Especially if you have a proven track record. No, that's the thing. No Joe Schmo can do it if their track record's not proven.
Yeah.
But if you have a proven track record, and they see the passion behind it, getting to know would have sucked.
Yeah.
But
that's what I was expecting, because I'm like, it's a huge.
It wouldn't have stopped you. I can tell you now.
No, probably not.
Yeah, you probably would have scaled it back a little bit, but it wouldn't have stopped you.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, let me off for 2 months and I'll do it on a bicycle.
Yeah,
something. But I was like, okay, well, it's real now. I have to plan now. So I asked in like February of 2021.
Yeah.
And I had I started it in July, started the run in July. So I had, a couple months to get ready. I had to find a vehicle. I had to find all my supplies. Like, I had to fine tune the route. I had to, there was a million things to do. And I had a very good group of people that were helping me, but I'm horrible with delegating. Hey, I need you to do this for me.
I was gonna say, I'll handle it. How many people did you have driving the route?
Driving the route
before you started running, because I'm sure you had people out there looking at the routes already, driving the routes, making sure things were kosher.
I made multiple posts, and I was like, "Hey, I need drivers, multiple, for this journey." I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I've never done anything on this scale. I was like, if you can drive for a week or 2 weeks, we'll work out how to get you back home. Like, we'll figure it out. Like, I just need somebody to be willing to donate some time of driving from point A to point B, or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't have any luck because, I understood this is a lot to ask of anyone.
Yeah.
If someone asked me like, hey, can you take off 4 months and drive an RV across the country? Sorry, bud, I gotta pay my bills. Not that I don't want to. It's just we gotta pay our bills.
Yeah.
And I made a post about this. This was a month or so. I don't know the exact date away from me starting. I don't have a driver. I personally bought an RV with my own credit and money. So I had to, because I knew I have to have a vehicle.
Yeah.
I went and bought a 1996 Georgie Boy Pursuit with like 45,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
Miles wise, it was great, but it was 1996 in 2021.
Yeah.
So it was pretty old. But
it was old. Yeah.
It was what I needed. It did everything I needed it to. So about a month or so out from starting, I made another post. I'm desperate. I'm like, I need help. Please share this post. I need it. Then I put some details in the post. Some people shared it from Ohio, actually.
The best state ever. Go Buckeyes.
Hey, I got a lot of love for Ohio, just not their sports teams. But so one of my friends shared the post, and one of his friends saw it, and he reached out to me. He was like, hey, I'm a 20 plus year Army vet. I was a tanker for 20 years, and I would like to drive for you.
Yeah.
He said, I am an auto mechanics instructor at a college, and I want to take the semester off and drive for you. I'm like, what? I don't like. Not only do I not know you, but like, you're gonna volunteer 4 months of your life just live with a stranger, basically.
Thanks for stopping in, Travis.
Good to see you, buddy.
By the way, anybody who's watching this, you can always go back and rewatch any of the podcasts. Kyle is actually streaming his on his Facebook page and his Twitch page. And if you haven't already, go over to the Shape the Podcast page on Facebook and give it a like, because you can watch this episode along with others that are on there. So
Absolutely.
Just I would put that out there for those of you who are coming and going.
Hi, Travis. But so I was blown away by this stranger at the time, willing to give up 4 months of his life, be away from his family for 4 months to do something like this. And he's like, no, I love what you're doing. I love what you're supporting. I love the cause, what you're doing it for. He's like, I know that you're not doing this for yourself. You're not doing it for any selfish reasons. I was like, I need to meet you first.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, you are.
And like we totally, immediately we hit it off. We exchanged phone numbers and had multiple phone calls.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'm leaving in like X amount of days or X amount of weeks, whatever. I said, this RV needs some work. Can I bring it over to you and look at it, see if it's even, going around?
Yeah.
So I drove it 6 hours. I drove it 6 hours over there. I think it was like a week or 2 weeks before I left. And he was like, if you try to drive this to California, you'll never make it, let alone drive it all the way across the country. This needs a lot of work. So we spent a week or two, I don't even know how many days it was, week or 2 weeks, working on it. ordering parts and stuff because it sat for so long. You know? And I was very stressed out because time was like very short, and we got everything fixed, back together. And a couple days before we were supposed to leave, one of his like best friends passed away. A very, very unfortunate. And he was like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, you're gonna stay here and go to your best friend's funeral. I'll figure this out. You know, I would never ask someone to give that up. You know, that is more important than this. You know, and I was like, we'll figure it out. I said, whenever you can meet up with me, we'll figure that out when that time comes. You deal with this first. I said, I got to go back to Indiana to get all my supplies, and I'm gonna head out by myself. I'll figure it out. And between the 6-hour drive from Ohio back to Indiana to get all the supplies, I made a post about it. I needed, and because he told me, he goes, hey, I can meet up with you by this date. Like 2 weeks or something like that. I'm like, okay, you know, I can fly into Vegas because I was going to run through Vegas anyways. I can fly into there and I can drive for you the rest of the way. I said, okay. By the time I got back to Indiana, before I even got back to Indiana, I had 2 guys that called me from Mad Viking Beard Company. Both of their names are Jason.
Yep. Jason Sealand.
Yep. Big Jason called me. He goes, hey, we seen your post. We want to drive for you until Mike can show up. I was like, and he was like, you're not going to take no for an answer. You're going to do this. Tell us where we need to be, when we need to be there, and we got you.
Yeah.
We're going to drop what we got to drop. We'll let the wives take care of the business, XYZ. We got you taken care of. Yeah. We're not going to let you fail. Okay. You know, and again, that was just something else that I couldn't have planned for, but it turned out extremely better than I could have ever hoped for.
Yeah.
You know, it was very unfortunate that situation happened, but it turned out better than I could have ever asked for, you know. So I get back to Indiana, pack up all my supplies by myself, drive out to California in an RV. I've never driven an RV in my life. This thing's like 30 foot long, gigantic, you know. And I drive out there. The onboard generator didn't work, so I had to I had to stop at Walmart a couple times and get like a power bank so I could plug my phone in to know how to get there.
Yeah.
I knew I had to go west, but like, you know, the details I didn't know. So I had to have my phone on the whole time for GPS. And I get out to California. I pick up the Jasons, and that very first day I ran from San Diego, California. I actually started at MCRD, where I went to boot camp at in California. And I ran all the way to Oceanside, California, which is about 45 miles, I think it was 45 miles that first day.
Wow.
And because I had 4 months, I knew roughly what I had to run per day. And I had already scheduled like days off. I knew I couldn't run for 4 straight months. I had to take at least 2 days a week off to rest, you know, and recover. Because it wasn't like you're running 5-10 miles. It was, you know, 30, 35, 40 miles a day sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but when I picked them up from the airport and we took off that next morning, it was like, it didn't even hit me yet that what I was doing. Like, I knew that I'd done the 300 miles multiple times. And one of the best things about them doing that was not only did they give up their time, which means more to me than anything in the world when someone gives me their time, because it means more than any amount of money. They would not let me pay for anything. They wouldn't let me pay for gas. They paid for hotel rooms instead of staying in the RV. Like, they were like, no, we're gonna take care of you until we leave. Like, you know, and like, just that's the genuine kind of people that I have allowed into my life, because, you know, my life was changing this entire time, this entire 6 years at that point.
You were growing and didn't know it.
Yeah, exactly. So every single night, every day we ate great. They paid for every single meal, every hotel room, gas, everything. And we get to the Mojave Desert right before we get into Nevada. And it took me 2 days to get through the Mojave Desert. I planned to go through there on purpose in July. It's just south of Death Valley, which Death Valley is like one of the hottest places on the planet in July. Took me 2 days to get to the Mojave Desert, and those guys refused to turn on the air conditioner while we were in the desert. They were like, "If you're gonna suffer, so are we."
Yeah.
I'm like, "You guys are crazy," you know. But it's things like that that like not only like help keep me motivated and like inspired to go, meeting people along the way, talking to them, and hearing their stories and telling them some of my story at that time that I was comfortable telling. Now I'll tell you everything.
Yeah.
That journey got me to the point where I can talk about everything.
Yeah.
And then when we got to Las Vegas, that was a trip by itself. That's a story that's for another time. But we spent 2 days in Vegas. I had never been there. And again, they were like, anything you want to do, we're going to pay for it. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. You guys have already done more than enough.
Yeah.
I could never ask you to do anything else. But we had a great time in Vegas, and they left. And then at that same day, Mike flew in from Ohio, and we took off from there. And at that point, I had never ran farther than that. That was like the 350-mile mark, you know.
Yeah.
So it took me about 10 days, about the same amount of time that I'd normally done. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing now. This is all uncharted territory now. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
I've never been past this many miles.
Pretty much. Yeah. So, we went to the Hoover Dam like the second day. I think that Mike started driving. Got to see things like that along the way. Because I planned the route specifically to see certain things, not just, you know, because I knew I had to take time for myself as well.
Yeah.
So we got to see things like that. But the day that we got to the Grand Canyon was the day that changed my life. 100%. I had seen it a million times flying over it. I had never physically been to it, you know, where you could walk up to the edge.
Yeah.
And we spent a whole day there. I planned for us to spend a whole day there. And Mike did everything. Like Mike cooked every single day, and like he navigated it. Like I told him like where we were gonna go, but he fine-tuned navigated everything.
Mm-hmm.
Legend for doing that. Like I to this day could never thank him enough. But when we got to the Grand Canyon, we spent a whole day there walking different trails and stuff. And getting to sit on the edge of the Grand Canyon, like I could literally talk about that whole day for hours because it changed my life so much that like nothing ever has. I don't know if I could physically go through that much of a change again and have my brain intact, because it literally blew my mind. Like I got there and I was thinking about like, this is way farther than I've ever ran. This is more than not necessarily more than I bargained for, but like this is, you know, basically unfamiliar territory. So I didn't know what to do. And I'm like, I'm dealing with these demons up here now.
Yeah.
I went past that point where I can ignore them. Now they're like, hey, buddy, remember me?
Hey, guess what? We're still here.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what to do. So, and like, yeah, I'm not trying to get super religious, but like, I sat there and I was like, if I don't deal with this kind of stuff, these things, this is going to be the biggest, like, not waste of my time, but like, I know that if I don't do this, this is basically in vain. Like,
yeah,
you know, I'm trying to help other people, but I'm purposely not helping myself.
Yeah, like you would be letting yourself down. You know?
Yeah. And I was fighting with that because I was like the entire time, I don't want to do this for myself.
Yeah. I
don't want to get anything out of this. I want to help other people. And I had that conversation with that higher power or with God, whatever you want to fill in a blank there for yourself,
yeah.
you know, whatever you believe in. And I was like, I'm not ready to do this. I'm not ready to deal with all of that.
Yeah.
All of my mistakes, all of everything I've been through. I'm not ready yet. And I had the answer was, if you weren't ready, you wouldn't be here.
That's right.
If you weren't ready, you would not have met Ryan. You would not have met Van, which I'll get into Van later. I met Van in Alabama, the third year of the 300 miles. But if you weren't ready, you wouldn't be here. It's going to be difficult, but if you weren't ready, you wouldn't be here. Because if you weren't ready, those suicide attempts would have worked years before this.
Yep.
Those didn't work. Those 2 attempts didn't work for you to be here sitting on the edge of the Grand Canyon today.
Yeah.
I was like, I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for that answer because I had that thing in my brain to take the easy way out.
So yeah,
that's how humans are wired.
What a euphoric moment then,
Yeah, and I was like, okay, if I'm supposed to be here, then I'm gonna keep going. So I was like, all right, Mike.
But by the way, I officially hate you. I got tears in my eyes. All right,
No, and that's the thing, because I held all of that back for that was 2021. I was like 33, I think, at the time. So I held all of 33 years worth of guilt, shame, embarrassment, addiction, XYZ. All that in for, even though I was trying to help all those people for those years I was doing 300 miles, like, it was time to deal with Kyle.
But even then, when you did those 300 miles, and now God was still doing something in your life that you had no idea.
Yeah, I had I was just running the 300 miles to train for 3,000 miles.
Yeah, you were being prepared for something bigger.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, then here we go. Like that scene from the Joker in Batman, and here we go.
Yeah.
I told Mike, and I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen from here on out. I said, but no matter what, I'm not gonna quit. I'm not and you can ask Mike too if you ever meet him, how many times I told him I wanted to go home. I was like, I'm tired. I want this. This sucks. I'm hurting. I want to go home. And every single time he was like, okay, you say the actual word, I'll take you home.
Yeah.
Are you ready to go home? Yeah. No. I'll suck it up. I'll be okay. I'll push through, and I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And he knew how I felt. He knew what I was going through. Me and him didn't talk nearly as much as I wish we would have about that conversation that I had on the edge of the Grand Canyon by myself.
Yeah.
But he knew.
But that's the thing. Sometimes you don't have to just share that with everybody,
Yeah.
Moments of clarity like that, sometimes are just meant for you and God or whoever,
Yeah, and I wasn't ready to share that then. Yeah. So at that point on, I knew, I was like, I have to deal with all of the things in my life that I've been through. So I was like, as overwhelming as that is, pick one thing at a time and deal with that one thing, and don't move on to the next thing until you're done with that. Whether you've had to forgive yourself, someone else, just.
So this is a going right here, Jeff Harris. By the way, if you ever get the chance to meet Jeff Harris, man, what a great guy. But
yeah,
I like how he said, it's helping me realize that by helping others, I've not truly dealt with my demons. I've only suppressed them. And I think a lot of people will do that. A lot of people will help others because that gets them out of
thinking about themselves.
100%. I mean, I can tell you right now, me doing this podcast has not only helped others, but it's helped myself. This is my therapy. This is my every other week therapy. Doing this right here.
Yeah.
Because it reminds me that my journey, albeit it was my journey, that there are other people who are going through the same thing I went through.
Yeah.
There are people out there who are dealing with the loss of family members and loved ones due to suicide. I'm just lucky enough I survived.
100%.
So like this is why I do it. So it's never too late to realize that sometimes we forget about our inward demons, because 100%. We're too busy helping others,
Yeah. And so when I took that, I took one thing that I was dealing with. Like, I was a shitbag Marine. I'm not gonna deny that. Yeah. I got in a lot of trouble. But and I dealt with like things that I'd held on to like for years. I got kicked out of a private school when I was a junior in high school. Okay.
Yeah.
I went to school my entire life. My mom went there. My family built the church and built the school. You know, it was very strict. I was the first one to get kicked out, and I got kicked out.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I got kicked out for something that I didn't do, but they wouldn't believe me because I had gotten in a lot of trouble prior to that. So it was kind of the last straw that broke the camel's back, which is fine, you know. But I held on to that for years of resentment of, you know, and whatever. But so I held, I was one of, that was like not the first thing, but that was one of the first things that I was like, I'm gonna pick that. I'm gonna deal with that, you know.
Yeah.
And there was someone that was the reason I got kicked out too, that said I did something I didn't do, and I hated that. I hated that person for years. Yep. And every time I would see that person or think about that person or see how successful they were being in life, successful, you know, perception, I would just it would bring it all back, and I get so mad, you know. But then I was like, I dealt with it. I was like, that person, I don't think did it on purpose, and if they did, whatever. It's almost 20 years ago, you know. And like I had that conversation, like I had to find this person. I'm like, hey, I've held a grudge against you for almost 20 years because of something you did and that you may not even realize that you did, or you maybe you were having a bad day or whatever. Like I've had to have those conversations or deal with myself. Like, hey, you did this. You made the decision to do X, Y, and Z. This is the you know, this is the result of those things that you've chosen to do. Or, you know, you've drank yourself to death, literally, you know, and whenever the problem was, you know, and I would leave that, whatever that issue was or that burden was, in that spot when I finally got through it.
Yeah.
So like I can show you on the map pretty much within, you know, a good area where I left certain issues, burdens, or feelings or whatever I had was going through. And it was such a weird feeling because I'm like, why do I feel like I've lost like 40 pounds?
It's because you have lost 40 pounds.
Right. I lost 40 pounds up here.
Yeah. You lost 40 pounds of negative, hateful, remorseful baggage, you know?
Yeah. And that emotional baggage and trauma and everything else is horrible. Like it takes a lot to dig yourself out of that. And like, I think that being put through what I went through, as horrible as some of it was, but compared to what some others have been through, is nothing, you know?
Yeah.
But how I held on to it was literally killing me, you know? And so like I got through this issue, and then I was like, all right, it's time to move on to something else. And then like this entire trip, as we're going through different states and seeing different things, meeting different people and learning who I was like purposely pushing something to the back. I'm like, I'll deal with that. I'll deal with that later.
Yeah.
And I'm getting through, and it was I was going through, I just passed through Columbus, Ohio, actually. And I was like, this is like not the last, because I'm never going to get through deal with everything. Yeah. I don't have enough time for that, even though it was 4 months. But this is like one of the biggest things you have left. I know that I'm purposely pushing to the back.
Yeah.
Just get it done and over with. And I was like, ooh, had the same conversation. I'm not ready for that yet. And I was like, oh wait, I remember that conversation I had at the Grand Canyon.
Yep. And everything else, I am ready for that now.
And I guess, and everything else that I had already went through, I'm like, yeah, okay. And it took me like 4 weeks to get through it, you know, and forgive myself and like accept the results of the decisions that I had made prior to that caused all these things. And that was harder to forgive myself than to forgive someone else.
Yeah.
And like,
it doesn't take much for us to forgive others, but it takes a lot for us to forgive ourselves.
I'm a horrible person about holding a grudge. Obviously, I held a grudge for like almost 20 years.
I don't hold grudges anymore because it's not worth it, you know.
Anymore, yes.
Let go and let God. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So when I finally got through with everything, you know, the hardest things, And that's the thing. I was dealing with the hardest things because this is the only time I'm going to have to do this much time to myself, you know?
Yeah.
Because you're out. I was out there meeting people. I was out there doing this, but most of the majority of the time I was by myself. Mike wasn't far away ever, but I was never with him except for in the evenings, you know? So, we go through Ohio and we get to Pittsburgh, we get to Monsters Ball. I scheduled everything around that too. Like I wanted to be there, like right when it was happening, and it worked out flawlessly. But let me back up just a hair. Mike actually went back home when we got to Indiana. And he needed to be with his family. You know, I wasn't going to complain about that. But I had another guy, Army veteran named Van, who I had met in Alabama the third year I did the 300 miles, who also walked across the country. So I called him. I was like, hey, would you be willing to drive this last 4 or 5 weeks, whatever it was, to Washington, D.C.? He goes, absolutely. He goes, when do I need to be? Where do I need to be? And I'll be there.
Yeah.
So Mike flew home, and Van drove up from Alabama, parked his car at my sister's house, and we continued, you know? So I got to ride. I got to have the Jasons drive for me for about almost 2 weeks. Mike drove from Las Vegas to Indianapolis, and then Van drove from Indiana all the way to DC and then back home. So I had 4 drivers for 4 months.
Wow.
But Mike was the majority. Mike was I think Mike was almost right at like around 3 months. So I spent the most time with him. But when Van took over as driver, it's like, oh man, I have to basically get to know this guy too, which I already knew Van, but not on that level of basically living in a little tin box, you know? So, we got through all of Ohio. We get to Pittsburgh, and that's when we got to see everybody at Monsters Ball, we went Monsters Ball again. So I was dealing with the big thing during Monsters Ball. And I was like, I can't let anybody know that I'm dealing with this shit, you know, because I'm, you know, whatever. And I had somebody come up to me. I'm not going to say who it was. And they were like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. They're like, no, I can tell there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Like, there's something eating at you. I'm like, and I explained to him very little because I still wasn't ready to talk about all of that stuff. I said, yeah, I'm just still dealing with some stuff. I said, I'm getting through it. I said, but this is a tough one to get through, you know?
Yeah.
And they were like, you know, we had a conversation, and, you know, it was between me and them, but it basically reignited like not just my drive, but like my motivation, but like the clarity in what I was doing wasn't for me, because I was holding on to that too. I was like, I still don't want to do this for me. This is for other people.
Yeah.
And like, I knew that I had to do it for myself to help other people too.
Yeah, I was gonna say you were doing it for other people, but as you just alluded to, in the long run, look what it helped you. You know.
Yeah.
It helped you release some of that shit. Pardon my language. It helped you release that you know, into the universe. You know, because really all along those whole entire miles, God was working on a plan. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so I'm not going to go back too far, but like, because everybody would ask me, I get like the same 15 or 20 questions that everybody asks me, you know, what was my favorite part? What was my favorite state? Or what was my favorite experience? But there was I went to I planned my route into a certain town in Texas named Granbury, Texas.
All right.
A guy that I went to boot camp with was born and raised there and lived there. And he had passed away, and I didn't know it for a long time. And I had found out because I had wished him a happy birthday on Facebook one time. I was still friends with him. I said, oh, hey, man, happy birthday. Long time no see. I miss you. Whatever. Sent it.
Yeah.
And a couple days later, his mother messages me, and she goes, hey, I don't know you or how you know my son, but he passed away, you know, a year or so ago. And I felt horrible.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, you know, my name is Kyle. actually, my name's Killinger because we didn't know each other on a first name basis.
Yep.
And I was like, I went to boot camp with your son. He always made me laugh because he was right across the squad way from me, and he would try to do things to get me in trouble. Like he would get me to laugh so I'd get in trouble, you know. And he was one of the few, not the few people that I remember, but like he was one of the few people that I was the closest to. I said, I had no idea that he passed away, and she told me his story. And I was like, I want to. This is what I'm like. This is years before when I found out he passed away before the run. When I planned the run, I planned the run specifically to go to the town where they lived and where he was buried.
Yeah.
And I reached out to his father, who was in the guard still. I was like, hey, he's Master Sergeant Major. I'm sorry, big difference. I'm sorry, but I was like, this is what I'm doing. This is how I know your son. Would it be okay if I plan my route to come and visit you guys and see where he is buried? If that's okay?
Yeah.
He absolutely. So we communicated the entire time, and when he knew I was getting close, he told the entire county about what I was doing.
Oh wow.
And yeah, we get into this town, and there was, I'm not exaggerating. It seemed probably 200 or 300 people that were just sitting there. Like the cops escorted me in, had a bunch of people running with me, and you know, it wasn't. Again, like I felt guilty because I'm like, this isn't what I want this to be about.
Yeah. But
I got to, like, people were talking to me afterwards. They would come up to me and ask me questions or tell me part of their story, and I'm like, okay, this is what I want. I want people to open up and, you know. So, but I had a mother. This is one of the things that I hope I'll never forget in my life. I had a mother that come up to me, and she was asking me questions and stuff, and she said, "Would you talk to my son?" Absolutely. And he was standing off in the distance a little bit, and she's like, he had walked in on his father committing suicide when he was doing the act. And I was like, and he was the same age. He is the same age as my son. At the time, he was like 9 years old. And I was like, I'm not qualified for this. Yeah. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I said, I'm not qualified for this. Yeah. And she's like, will you just talk to him with whatever you can? I was like, yeah. I'll try. I said, I cannot have a adult conversation with that child because he's not, with what he's been through, he is mentally not a child anymore. That, you know, so I walked up to him and I got to talk to him for a little bit, you know, and that conversation, like, again, I don't know. And I told this kid that, like, most of the conversation will always stay between me and him. But, like, the one thing I told him was, like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here for you or if you're supposed to be here for me because like being here and hearing what you've been through is why I'm doing this, like to prevent people like your dad from doing what he did, you know, and making you feel the way that you're feeling, you know. And we had a conversation, and I told one of the first things I said to him after I told him who I was and I knew what he'd been through, I said, I'm going to talk to you like a grown adult. I said, because with what you've been through, I feel like you're no longer a child. Yeah. Mentally. And he knew exactly what I was talking about. Like, you know, what that does to a person, like extraordinarily, like speeds up their thought process or their brain or whatever you want to talk about. Yeah. And that story was like one of my, I don't want to say favorite because of the situation, but that story stuck with me. And like it hurt to have that conversation with that child. But I like, again, I told him, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here to help you or if you're here to help me, you know. And that was also when I was dealing with one of the bigger things at that time too. And I was like, it's time to let that go because of things like this, you know, meeting people like this. And again, we got all the way to DC in November of 2021. And I don't even know how many people, I don't even want to try to guess how many people were there. Way more than I ever thought was going to show up. Every bit of 50, 60 people, probably more, but tons of people showed up from all over. Like, you know, I had people that I had a dude come from I met in Arizona, fly to DC. There was a lady that I met like 2 weeks prior to that. Me and Van were walking through a national park and she was hiking and we just got talking and Van told her who I was, what I was doing. Hey, if you're not doing anything on this date in DC, come and, you know, show up. And I'm like, man, I don't know her. She showed up, you know, but the hardest part was I had made a video, try to make videos as much as I could throughout the entire thing. But after being outside all day, sometimes you just don't feel like being in front of a camera. You understand, but I was like, we're getting close to the end. I said, I'm going to let you guys know now. I've been going through a lot. I've been dealing with a lot. When I'm done, all of this has to come out, and I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to try to hold it in because of, not only the accomplishment of what we're doing, but like all the stuff that I've dealt with. And, this is it. This is where it all is going to come out, and I'm not going to try to hide it or hold it in. And when we got to DC and I got to see so many people, we walked through Arlington first before we finished there by the Vietnam Wall. I had friends from Florida that came and showed up. I was like, and Tom from Save 22, he has ran with me at the end of every 300 miles that I've ever done, except for one. He couldn't be there for family issues for that one, but he's like, I want to run with you the last little bit. I was like, I want you to, but I need to take a lap around the reflecting pool right in front of the Lincoln Memorial that leads up by the Vietnam Wall. I said, I need to take this lap for myself, by myself. And I did a live video, but I was having that conversation with myself. This is it. Like, I know in like 300 yards what's going to happen. But that's what I needed to do. So we got up there and he ran, I ran around the reflecting pool and he came out at the very end of it and he ran with me to the very end. And, people were there and everything, but like as soon as we got done running, like he just hugged me and it was just like the floodgates opened and I just let it all out for like, it seemed like an eternity. I know it was probably just a couple minutes, but like it seemed like an eternity, but like, it was such a good feeling, a freeing feeling of like uplifting. I can't put it into words what it felt like. Those are like the only words that I can even come up with, of like going back and reliving those 4 months of dealing with all of my life, and like it's over. Like, you've done this, you've dealt with this, you've got through this, and you've turned your life around. You're not the person that you were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 months ago, and it's funny. It's ironic too, because the run was from July to November of 2021. I stopped drinking alcohol in February of 2021. So I had recently just gotten sober after drinking for, I don't even know how many years. And that's something else that I thought was never possible, because I thought I always need this.
Yeah. No. And we don't need anything. Like, even though, I can tell you today, and I've talked about it, like less than 20 feet away from me is a cabinet full of 80 to 90 bottles of bourbon. Right?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of that, maybe 1 bottle, 2 bottles is open. That's it.
Yeah.
But that's because I don't need that today to survive.
Yeah.
I thought I needed it back then.
Yeah.
But really, what I needed back then is to stop hanging out in the places I was hanging out in. Stop hanging around the people I was hanging out with.
100%.
That because I went to AA because I thought I had a drinking problem.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out, I didn't have a drinking problem. I had a people problem.
Yeah. No, I get that. And people ask me how I did it, and I did it in the most unhealthy way ever. I just went cold turkey, and it almost killed me. If I wouldn't have been running at the time, it would have killed me.
A lot of people have done it, and a lot of people have survived it.
Mm-hmm. So let's see, 3 years, 9 months, and 12 days, exactly. That's 1,380 days, and I've never been happier about an accomplishment like that. Like, I'm just as proud of that as I am, completing 3,333 miles.
Well, yeah, because both those things saved your life.
100%. And everybody asks me, I have changed the people that are in my life, because I'm sober and because I've been trying to change my life. And I have certain friends that I have a lot of friends that still drink. And they all ask me, like every single one of them asked me, are you okay if I drink around you? And I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
I said, I don't have.
It's not affecting me.
Well, right. I was like, it's not a you problem. it was a me problem.
Yeah.
I said it was my problem that I had to deal with, and I was drinking for the wrong reasons. Like, you know, I'm not going to bash anybody for drinking. I said I just hope no one drinks for the reasons that I was drinking for.
Yeah.
And as much as I was drinking, you know, because like it will kill you. Like, I've seen it happen.
One of mine was I almost died because of alcohol poisoning. I had to get my stomach pumped. You know,
I've had mine pumped twice.
That was
the worst feeling ever.
That was one of my suicide attempts.
Yep.
I mean, it was, and I'm not ashamed to share that. You know, now.
Yeah.
But you know, but we all do the things we do because of the problems we think we have. You know.
Yep.
But then we look at it like, well, fuck, man. There's 22, 23 veterans out there who were dying every single day. You know, my problems aren't that bad.
Exactly. And one of the biggest things that helped me too was when I was getting that negative mindset of I need a drink, or I'm, you know, start feeling sorry for myself or whatever, is I talk about this book all the time. The David Goggins book, Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah.
Also changed my life. But like, he talks about changing your perspective when you're having those kinds of thoughts or in those situations. Like as much as this situation sucks, it could be worse, and you have to find the good in that situation. As hard as it might be, it's there.
There's always good in every bad situation. There's always some sort of good.
Right.
You know?
We might not want to hear it or think about it, but it's there.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, if you'd asked me 10 years ago what I thought my life would be like, or if, you know, if I could honestly tell you that I've helped someone and with anything, I would have told you absolutely not.
Yeah.
But knowing that I had to go through hell to help myself, I have helped others, and it's not in a selfish way, you know, or I didn't do it for myself, but I had to help myself before I could help anybody else.
And you're still doing that. So during this time, when did you come up with my brother's, you know, keeper?
Because he's my brother.
When was that formed?
So because he's my brother, I started that when I decided I was going to run the 300 miles. I knew I had to call it something.
Yeah.
And I reached out to a couple of veterans. I'm like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to run this 300 miles. And I was like, I want it to be, I'm not necessarily trying to become the next Wounded Warrior. That's not what I'm trying to do, you know?
Yeah.
And I've got different feelings about them. But,
me too. Don't worry.
Yeah. And like, I feel like every organization like that starts out with great intentions, and then they see that dollar sign. I said, I don't want to see the dollar sign. I don't want that. I don't want it. That's not what I'm trying to do. So I reached out to a couple of veterans, and one of them is a tattoo artist. I'm like, hey, this is what I'm doing. What can I call this? And we a couple guys brainstormed, and the song "He's Not Heavy, He's My Brother" kept popping in my mind. I'm like, I can't take that. That's already taken.
Yeah.
And to this day, I honestly cannot tell you if he came up with it or if I came up with it. Somebody said, why not just call it Because He's My Brother? I'm like, I like that, you know. And my buddy that's the tattoo artist goes, hey, I'll draw you up a logo, see if you like it. I'll give you a couple to choose from. We can fine tune it, and it became the hand holding the dog tags with the 22 on it.
Yeah.
And it will never change. I've been offered to have it changed. It'll never change. And, you know, I will eventually have that tattooed on me at some point, but only by the guy who drew it. And I have to go to Daytona, Florida for that, so I don't go to Florida very often.
Well, looks like you got to take a trip to Daytona.
Yep.
No, I mean that right there it's pretty good, because I remember you posting a picture of, it was an NRA race or somebody's like a NASCAR race or something like that, and somebody actually had that flag hanging up in their garage.
Yep. It's wild, man. Like I said, I am so grateful for my life now. It's unreal, because that logo or that flag or that shirt is literally in like 5 or 6 different continents.
Yeah.
Not just here. Save 22, they have sponsored a NASCAR, they sponsored F1 car, and they sponsor a Top Fuel dragster. And the F1 car and the Top Fuel Dragster both have my flag and shirts and stuff, and they post all the time. And like, and I know that's not, they're not posting Kyle on that wall. They're posting that the struggle isn't the, like, just because you're struggling, it's not the answer to end your life, you know?
Yep.
And my friend that actually sent that picture, the one I posted not too long ago, about he had the 22 Save 22 flag and the Because of Brother flag in the garage of that. I was like, you know, as much as I've dealt with all of my stuff, I still have bad days just like everyone else, and that's never going to change. But I know how to tackle those bad days. I have the tools, the support system to deal with those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, he posted that, and I was having a bad day, you know. And I messaged her like, dude, that means a lot, because you took the time to put that up, because it stands for something, you know. And we're all going to have bad days. That's never going to stop. But like we said earlier, it's like, it's okay to not be okay. Just, you can't live there. And I lived there for, sorry for my language, I lived there for fucking years.
No, it's
okay. It almost killed me. It really almost killed me.
I should have said it's okay to cuss on this podcast.
I know. I knew. I got that earlier. But like this year, Joe's talking about it too. This year, we went to the NHRA U.S. Nationals. The car that Save 22 sponsors, the driver and his wife are from the Netherlands. They gave up their citizenship to come to America to do drag racing, to live the American dream. And they've been very, very successful, you know. And this year, there was a guy walking across the country barefooted to raise awareness for men's mental health.
He wanted me to ask you about that guy, the barefooted Dutchman. That's the guy that I believe a couple of weeks ago you went to New York.
Yes. So when we met him, we met him in Indianapolis at the NHRA U.S. Nationals this year, and I didn't even know he was going to be there. Lex June is the driver. He had set it up because he'd heard about it on the Dutch radio, because they're all Dutch, and he listens to the Dutch radio. He heard about this guy walking across the country, and he was like, "Excuse me." He set it up for him to be there at the races, and Save 22 knew that, and they had asked me to be their spokesperson for them to take veterans to the races. I said, "Yeah," and it's the second time I've done it. I love it. It's an honor to do that.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, we have a surprise for you. That guy is going to be there." And I'm like, I don't fangirl. I don't get excited about celebrities or nothing. I fangirled like a 13-year-old girl at a Taylor Swift concert over this guy. I was like, "Oh, tell me all about it." I was like, "I want to know all about this. Like, I cannot imagine what your feet feel like." Like, you know, I asked him the same 20 questions that he always gets asked. What's the worst thing you've been through? Worst city? Like, what's the hottest?
Here he was doing the same thing that you did.
Yeah.
Much
stronger.
Barefoot.
But me and Joe walked with him for a couple miles that day, and he was like, I get this from him because I've done something very similar to what he did. I did not do it barefooted. Would never do it barefooted. Ever. But I knew the feeling of, he's like, I don't want to get to the end and no one be there. I said, I get that 100%. I said, I will make sure that I'm there. I'll make sure that at least one person is there to walk with you that last mile.
Yeah.
And so I set it up, and I was like, you know, my good friend Chad let me stay at his house, and we rode the train up to New York that day, and we walked with him that last mile, and there was probably 150 people.
Yeah, I was gonna say he had a crowd.
Huge following. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he ended in Times Square, because when he told me he was ending in New York, I was like, "You're gonna end in New York City barefooted? You're out of your mind."
You're a brave man.
Yeah. And he was like, you know, I've already walked through like St. Louis and, you know, Los Angeles. So I'm like, okay, but it's New York.
Yeah.
And, you know, I always asked him, like, why barefooted, you know? And he goes, that question right there is why. It gets people talking about what. And he said, I'm doing this for men's mental health. Women's mental health is just as important, but men, as somebody said earlier, men's suicide rate is extremely higher than women's.
Yep.
As unfortunate as that is. So he was doing something to raise awareness for that. And so we got to walk with him that last mile, and it was, I've walked with 3 people, I think,
All right.
that have walked across the country at some point of their journey. 2 of them at the finish line, and it is like the most like rewarding feeling watching someone else do it. Like now that I've done it, like I know what they're feeling, but like when Van finished his walk across the country in New Year's Eve of 2019 into 2020 in Myrtle Beach, I drove down there and I walked with him that last couple miles, and like I was like that has to be the best feeling in the world because people are acknowledging what you're doing, not what you're doing, but what you're doing it for. You know, you're willing to do this to yourself to make a difference for someone else. And I'm like, and things like that are what helped inspire me to do it. I'm like, if they've done it, it's not that I want to do it because I want to say I've done it, but like if I helped one person in 3,333 miles, I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
You know, and luckily I helped myself along with a number of people that I'll never know and I don't want to know. I don't need to know. But I know there was at least one, and it was worth it.
Yeah. And that's why I do this podcast. You know, it's because if I can help one person know that no matter the shit we go through in our lives, if you come out on the better side, a better person, then if you get something out of it, you know, that's what matters most. So what is next for Kyle and or Miles and because he's my brother? I mean, we know that you do the push-ups every single night, which is I tried to get you to do them on here, but you don't have enough space.
I don't have enough space for the green screen. I'm sorry.
What's the next thing for you, man?
That's a very difficult decision. I've been fighting that honestly for a while because it's been a little over 3 years now since I finished the cross country run. That's the last big thing that I did.
Yeah.
So when I set out on that 3,000 mile journey, I was like, I'm going to document everything. I said, I bought like 3 giant notebooks. I want to document everything because I want to write this all down. You know, I didn't sit down one single time and write anything down. But for multiple reasons, like my brain won't physically let me sit down and write something down on a piece of paper like that because there's so much information, and I'm the kind of person that could talk for hours if you don't know that by now. You know, especially if it's something that I'm passionate about. You know.
Yeah.
So
well, you know, we have a friend who was just as passionate. Right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm very and that was one of the hardest punches to the gut I've probably ever had because I was in Pennsylvania. No, I wasn't quite in Pennsylvania. I was in Ohio.
Yeah.
I think when we got the news that he had passed away.
I was coming back from Louisville, Kentucky.
And Jason Hall called me.
Yep.
And I was like, this is weird. Jason Hall never calls me. He'll message me on Facebook.
It was you were in Pennsylvania because it was a Monsters Ball, I believe, that was going on. There was a competition going on that a lot of people were at that weekend that he passed.
It might have been.
I don't remember, but I remember where I was. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember the campground of this RV park that we were at like it was yesterday because when he called me, it was like one of those specific memories that will probably never go away. Like when he told me that he had passed away, I was like, the human part of me was like, I was supposed to see him when I got done.
Yeah.
You know, because he knew what I was doing. And he talked to me multiple times throughout the run. He was on our podcast. We did an episode of our podcast multiple while I was on the road. And he was on the podcast, you know, and Patrick was like, we talked about this before the show started. Like, I've met thousands of people in my life. I have never in my life met anyone as genuine, as pure, as like passionate. You said it. Patrick was.
He was very and not just for himself. He did a lot of things for a lot of people. You know.
Yeah.
He was passionate about, you know, Lyme disease. You know, he was passionate about just anything and everything. Like he would take you out of the crummiest of the crummiest, and man, if he didn't inspire you by the time he got done, then
Yep.
something was wrong. Like I emceed a beard competition with him before he passed in Kentucky, and man, when he got on a roll and he got fired up, it was like you were sitting inside of a Southern Baptist church, man.
Yep.
Felt like the preacher was preaching down on you. Like,
yep. The first time I ever met him was at Monsters Ball in 2020 during COVID when they had it at the warehouse. And he got fired up that time, and I was like, man, this guy's got to be a Marine. Nobody talks like that but a Marine. I'm like, and I got to talk to him with him after that, and I was like, dude, I haven't heard anybody talk like that since I got out of the military. I'm like, we need that, you know. And again, he was just like the kindest person too.
Yep.
Like there will never be another one like Patrick, but you know, that gives me hope for what I want to do next, because taking the foot off of the gas pedal, sort of out of the running shoe, we'll say.
Yeah.
I am trying my best. My main goal is to write everything down in a book form.
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult with the way my brain works, my ADD, but I've got a army of people that are helping me and are willing to help me.
Yeah.
So that's my main goal. I want to write a book and I can go into more depth about my life and stuff, and how I went from, and I want to go into depth about what I've went through. Like, I feel like if people can hear it and apply, like the David Goggins book, I love the concept of if you haven't listened to it, don't read it. Listen to the audiobook, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. He wants you to take his life story and apply your life to it.
Yeah.
And that changed my life, because his story is amazing in itself. But like, if you can apply your life to it, and I feel like if people can apply theirs to mine and what I've been through, hopefully it can help somebody. Like his book helped me. Like, I didn't go through the things he went through, but like, I think that with some of the things that I've been through is more, I don't want to use the word common or, you know, cliche, but you know, that more people have went through than what he did. And that could resonate with a different crowd of people, you know, and hopefully help someone. And that's what I want to do. Like, I think that's mainly what I'm focusing on. I'm not done running. I'm just taking a break for now. I've been extremely lazy, getting out of shape. I had a couple minor surgeries that got me complacent and got me lazy to where I don't want to run.
Well,
I'm fine now, but
I can say this: you can still do 5Ks, but guess what? I can still do 5Ks too, but I don't run. You know.
Yeah.
But so you know, if you ever want to do another one, let me know. I'll do it with you. My dad bod, out of shape body. I will run for you, because I want to be there to support you. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate that, because I've thought about, like, when I get the book done, I want to do a run to promote it, you know, and get it out there. I've ran from coast to coast. I want to run from north to south now, or south to, you know, I haven't figured out a route, but I have just a rough idea where I want to go. But that's after I want to do the book, because I think the book should be done before I forget a lot of these things. Like, you know, because I know the older I get, some of the details I'll forget. But like I said, I didn't document anything or as much as I wanted to, but I did. I took like 45,000 pictures in those 4 months. You know, so I can look at those pictures. I can tell you all those details that I would have written down.
All you gotta do is sit down with your phone and record it.
I know. You know, I've been setting up a like a thing here on my computer where I can actually sit and do that, you know. But it's discipline, you know. That's the biggest part, is forcing myself to do it. And then, you know, when I get it done, I have to have someone go through it and get rid of all the stuff that's unnecessary, because I know that I just ramble on.
You have to have your editors. Well, I think that's amazing, you know. But by the way, somebody says Seattle to Tampa. Now, here is the thing. I love Seattle. I love it. You know, as a matter of fact, part of my heart is in Seattle. I don't really go into that, but part of my heart is in Seattle, and I would go there just to run the Seattle part, just because.
Yeah, I've never been to Washington. I would like to.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Different, but beautiful.
yeah, but yeah, I think that's I think that's the next big thing. My big goal is to get at least a good chunk of it done this winter. So,
Hey,
who knows?
if you have to drive, you'll get it done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, I know you have to work in the morning, and you still got to do those push-ups,
Yep.
right? I
1,341.
there you go.
That's how many days
So yes,
today is.
and he'll probably do them right after this, guys. So
Yep.
go over to his Facebook page or wherever he broadcasts at, and give him support. I mean, it's amazing what you do, you know, because I know that there are some days when you get home and you don't want to do them. He
Yeah.
actually does that. How many do you do? About 24, 25 a night?
So there's the thing is 22 push-ups for the 22 veterans commit suicide every day.
Extras for people who've also died or committed suicide.
So I have to think about it. I should know this by heart because I've done it for 1,341 days. So I do 22 push-ups, one for the core, one for something that sucks, one for the haters, one for 22, one for the core, one for the haters. I can't. I'll remember as soon as I got to do it.
So there's I know there's the core, there's the haters, there's Jim, there's Patrick.
I do.
There's a little boy, the little boy from Texas. All right. And I forgot what the other one was.
One for the core, one for something that sucks, one for the haters.
Yep.
One for something that sucks every day. One for Jen. Well, it was one of my friends that lost her fight here locally. One for Patrick, and there's a local boy that did too. And then I added a new one for Tom because Tom, thank God he's still here. He is who got me into doing the push-ups. He is who basically has helped me this entire time I've been doing anything for veterans. He was doing push-ups as well, and he had to stop because he had some surgery on his back, so he physically had to stop and couldn't do it anymore. So I do that push-up for him because he had to stop, you know. So I do 28 or 29, something like that.
Yeah.
So
well, I think that's amazing, man. You know, keep on doing it. You know what I'm saying?
I will. And I can finish with this too, because at the end of those push-up videos, I say the same thing every day, and it's just a few things that I try to live by, and I say these things to myself and for others too, because I'm not going to ask someone else to do something I wouldn't do. Be good to one another. Be a good human being. Love one another. Do something good for someone else that want anything in return. Don't do something to someone. Don't do something to someone you wouldn't have done yourself. Do something that sucks every day. Be accountable to yourself. If you can't be accountable to yourself, you can't be accountable to anybody else. Don't let anybody take your peace. And be grateful for your freedom every day.
Man, you know, and I was fixing to ask you if there was anything you could say to somebody out there who's going through the shits or anything like that. What could you say? You just said it right there.
Those things, and if you are struggling, reach out to someone. Don't try to suck it up or just bear through it. Talk to someone. Find someone. It doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be Kyle here. It can be anyone that you feel comfortable with talking to, even if it's just or listening to them. Like sometimes that helps certain people, but don't keep suppressing everything. Let it out, even if it's a little bit at a time, and then finding the good in every situation, because we're here for a reason. All of us are. We all have a purpose.
And sometimes you may not know that purpose, and then sometimes that purpose might smack you right in the middle of the face while you're watching another podcast.
Yeah. Yep. And you might be training, it might be running 300 miles to training 300 miles to run 3,000. You never know. Yep. But if you do, train.
Well, I appreciate you, man. I won't keep you long. I'm going to take you to the back and wrap up the show, but I appreciate you, man. I really do. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. I appreciate it. See you guys.
Right, I'll see you soon. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for everybody tuning in from Twitch and off of Kyle's Facebook page. If you want to, go over to Shape the Podcast Facebook page and give it a like. please share it out, because I do this not for myself, like Kyle said. I do this to help out others know that they're not alone in their struggles. You know, um, I'm on here every other Friday night, usually around 8 o'clock. Um, if I'm not, then I usually will let people know that I'm not having a podcast. So I would appreciate the support and the shares if you could. Um, yeah, yeah, do it. And also, if you're bearded, I mentioned this before the show. If you know anybody who has facial hair, go over to Lucky Boy Beard Co. and pick up a bottle of Hold Fast. All right. This bottle of beard oil was a collaboration between Shape the Podcast and Lucky Boy Beard Company. Um, it is to support men's mental health or just mental health in general. Um, it's $19 for a 1 ounce bottle, but $5 from every single sale of the bottle will be going to a mental health based charity. And I'll actually have that charity on in a couple weeks to share their story. And it's a great one. So go to Lucky Boy Beard Company, uh, get you a bottle of Hold Fast. You can use Shape 20 at checkout, and you'll get 20% off. But enough of that, guys. Y'all have a great weekend. Go Buckeyes, and love one another. Do something kind, and if you're hurting, reach out. All right. See you in 2 weeks.